Well, I should probably explain for loops. A for loop repeats some code a certain amount of times. There's a lot of similarities between what for loops and while loops can do. There are a few discrepancies though. You tend to use for loops when you want to repeat code a limited amount of times. A while loop is better suited to something that could execute an infinite amount of times possibly. In this example, we'll create a program to count to 10. We'll start at 1, count to 10. And we can do that with a for loop. So type for, parentheses, curly braces. What would we like to do within our curly braces? Let's display a variable, console.log. Let's call this counter. Now within the for loop, there's 3 statements that we can add. The first is that we can declare and assign a counter or some other variable. The first statement, we will type let counter, and I'll set this equal to 1. Then make sure to add a semicolon at the end to terminate the first statement. Second is our condition. We'll continue this statement as long as this condition is true. I will continue this for loop as long as our counter variable is less than or equal to 10. Then add a semicolon. And the third statement is that we can increment our counter. Counter plus equals 1. After each iteration, we increment our counter variable by 1. After running this program, we begin at 1 and count to 10. If I need to count to 100, I can just change this condition. Counter is less than or equal to 100. And we have counted from 1 to 100. If I need to begin at a different number, I could just set my counter to a different number, like, I don't know, 50. Now we have begun at 50 and counted to 100. So this variable counter, it's known as a local variable. It doesn't exist outside of this for loop. What a lot of programmers do, if they need some sort of temporary variable within a for loop to keep track of what iteration they're on, they'll simply just use I. That's a common convention. So let's change counter to I. So let I equal, let's change this back to 1. We'll count to 10 and increment I by 1 after each iteration. Now we could begin at 10 and count down. If we were to take that approach, we'll set our variable I to 10. We'll continue this for loop as long as I is greater than 0, and we will decrement I by 1. We could pretend that this is a countdown to New Year's Day. This time, when we escape the for loop, let's print Happy New Year. Console.log Happy New Year. Okay, we begin at 10, count down to 1. Once this condition is no longer true, we escape the for loop and print Happy New Year. So this simulates a countdown. So for loops are fairly flexible. We can increment or decrement our counter, I. We're counting down by 1 currently, but we could count down by 2 if we would like. Let's change I minus equals 1 to 2. And now we will count down by 2. 10, 8, 6, 4, 2, Happy New Year. Or even 3. 10, 7, 4, 1, Happy New Year. So yeah, that's basically a for loop. We repeat some code a certain amount of times. There's a lot of overlap where you could use either a while loop or a for loop. A while loop tends to be better in certain situations where you may potentially need to repeat some code an infinite amount of times. For loops are more suitable for code where you only need to repeat it a certain or given amount of times. So yeah, those are for loops. Hey, if this video helped you out, you can help me out by smashing that like button, leave a random comment down below, and subscribe if you'd like to become a fellow bro.